This is a video primarily on Twitter addressed to the Science Minister, George Freeman MP, about what are you going to do about UK science if, because of disagreements over the Northern Ireland Protocol, we cannot as a country complete our association to Horizon Europe. So I note today that you put out a statement from government saying that this government will underwrite, provide a safety net for those UK labs and researchers involved in the Horizon Europe programme um, during this time, whereby they're not getting paid and the EU has not allowed us that last step of association onto Horizon Europe. And that's good because, as has been reported by Science Business a while back, there are about 69 UK labs that have been working on Horizon Europe programs, but because of this blockage, not actually have had received any money from the program yet this year. So it is good that the government steps in to do that and to cover that. One thing that you didn't say, however, is what happens with this going forward. For example, in the longer run, if we are held up on fully being involved in Horizon Europe for longer, how long does this guarantee go on for? Or if the EU were to say, because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, invoking Article 16, whatever, you are no longer on the programme, then are you also providing the safety net? Are you also providing the guarantee for all of the UK labs that would want to participate on the Horizon Europe programme as a third country, under third country status? Do you have those funds ready? Do you have that safety net ready if we are no longer an associated country on the programme, but rather a third country on the programme, and you still have tens of thousands of partnerships between UK labs and European labs and labs further afield on this programme that want to work together? Have you covered that? Because this is my concern, because you don't say that explicitly. And when I was analysing the science programme in 2018, it was clear that about half of the grants, half of the funding we were getting from the EU science programme were available to third countries. And about half of the monies that we were winning were funds available only to associated countries or full EU members. Therefore, if we had had at the time a no-deal Brexit, our funding access would have been cut in half, because we'd have been eligible for half the streams, but not the other half. And we would not have been eligible for European Research Council grants, Mary Curie grants, those are the two largest, but also some others. So here's the question, and that's, we are at a blockage at the moment over this issue. That looks to go on until next year, and who knows how much further. But at one stage, there could be that rupture where we are no longer an associated country on this, as had originally been planned. What are you going to do with the money then? It concerns me that in government communications and in your letter, you say that we have a plan B. However, if all of this money that we would have spent as an associated member goes into plan B, that doesn't quite make sense. You would need half of it to allow UK labs to still participate on Horizon Europe as a third country status, participating in those multilateral programs as, second fiddles, just normal participants, not coordinators. And then the other funds, which were the ERC grants and the Mary Curie grants, the individual based funds, which incidentally make up about half of the funds of individual based grants in this country, you would have to replace those with talent grants in order to attract people from around the world to try and replicate the ERC and try and replicate the Marie Curie. But that then, if you were to split it that way, that makes sense. Half for third country continuation, half for replacement of streams to which we would be ineligible. But then that leaves a huge gap in the middle, and that is British coordination of multinational grants. You see, currently on, on Horizon 2020 and before that on FP7, FP6, FP5 and going back, the UK was absolutely dominant in coordinating multinational projects of the EU science programme. Far more than any other country, we were the ones that got chosen as the coordinator lab, getting all the money, distributing it to all the other partners, and usually leading up on IP or pulling in local SMEs or what have you. We would be ineligible for this if we don't have the associated status and we're third country status. So then we would suddenly have a big chunk missing, which is where in the world are UK labs leading multinational 10 country, 15 country collaborations to tackle the big issues. So you would need then a new pot of funds in order to try and encourage something like that. And it's really difficult in terms of how you'd go about it. Either with that pot of funds, you say we're going to have a science program that's international, multinational, and the UK can lead or will lead all of these programs. How are you going to get other countries involved? You've got two options. One is to say, this is our grant, we'll give out the money. British money will go to Argentine labs, Japanese labs, American labs, French labs, Spanish labs, wherever they are, but we will cover that, we will pay for that from our own pot in order to get you involved. And that's very, very expensive. Or you have the other option, which is, like the EU science programme, we're going to run this program, but would like the Japanese government to chip in, and the South Korean government to chip in, and the Australian government to chip in, and so forth and so on. In which case, you have to spend a lot of time going around those countries, finding the level of involvement they want. They will also want a policy voice. And as you bring in more partners that all want a policy voice, you are controlling a very, very complex system that gets years to set up. So I want to know from George Freeman, you are the science minister, you have talked about there being a plan B if we can't associate to Horizon Europe. What is it? Because all I can see from the text that you've put out is, well, we won't have to just focus on the EU. There are lots of other countries to collaborate with. And that is a false argument because, of course, the EU science programme covers all the countries of the world as third-party participants and has very complete coverage of that and has had going back decades. When I was doing analysis of FP5 to FP6, so 98 to 2006, just in health, there was coverage of about 136 or 138, something like that, countries worldwide. So to cut ourselves from that and try and build an alternative would take a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of stress, and we would probably be paying for it in a very, very inefficient way. But we do need to know what the plans are so that the wider science community can actually chip into this. Because if this is just a plan being cooked up by yourself and Lord David Frost and a few top science bods, it's going to miss a whole load of angles that can be identified by the wider science community. So we do need to know what that option is. Could you put it on paper very clearly for all of us to have a look at in the name of transparency and openness, please?